All right, welcome back to another video. Today we're going to transform this space, which is kind of my reading area, into a nighttime couch area. The reference photos here, this is kind of the inspiration of what I was going for this. So obviously I'm going to do some things that maybe are a little bit different. I'm going to change some colors. I'm just going to kind of make it my own, but this was the general inspiration to wanting to make this video tonight, is to kind of recreate what this shot is. The first thing I did was kind of just look at what the space was, and I noticed that the couch was in front of a window, and where my couch is normally is against just a wall. But with a little bit of hard work, I just moved the couch with my wife in front of our other window. And looking at the reference, the other thing I noticed was the placement of the couch. It is about, it's not against the wall. It's probably about 4 feet off the wall. So it adds a little bit of depth, a little bit of separation from the subject and the wall. So that's what I did. And now I'm just gonna start lighting it and kind of getting ready for nighttime. So when my wife comes home from her Pilates class, yes, Pilates. So yeah, I'm gonna walk through kind of what my process is lighting this particular scene. So looking at the reference, I got it from ShotDeck, and the aspect ratio is 2.00. And after a little Google search, I noticed that they shot on the Mini LF and K35s, which I don't have, but I do have a Venice, which is full frame. So I'm gonna try to match it as best as I can. And based on my assumption, it kind of looks like a 35-ish. Maybe not exactly a 35, but it definitely doesn't feel like a 50. It doesn't feel like it's awkwardly wide. So the best lens that I have to kind of fit that is probably a 35. The one thing I will say though off the bat is I think the camera is probably a bit lower in the reference shot. Unfortunately, this is pretty much how low my tripod can go without taking the spreaders out and it becoming an absolute mess. Okay, so maybe I was wrong. Looks like maybe a 25 might be the answer. So something that's kind of interesting that I'm just playing around with now is just getting my base exposure of what I think I'm gonna need and what I'm kind of just setting my base to. And because it's still sunny out and it's more of just like ambient light, the sun is going down, there's no real direct hard light. The look that's coming through the windows is almost identical to what I'm actually gonna be trying to recreate. So it's kind of just a thought of, depending on the time of day, if you can't shoot at night, what if you shoot when it's still daylight, but it's ambient light coming in through the window, no real hard light, and you're able to kind of change the white balance in camera to make it look a little bit bluer, add a little bit of warmth in the interior via practicals, whatever kind of lights you have in there, and it might be able to kind of pass as a sort of nighttime look. But this is just like a little, insert of what it could look like if I had to shoot it now, how I would try to make it look like a sort of day for night type of look. Okay, a little hair light going. All right, stupid C-stand. Bam. Remember everyone, knuckle on the right, righty tighty, lefty loosey. Because if this falls down, it's technically tidying the knuckle. Now, if this was on the opposite side, it's wrong, and you get yelled at by a grip. So, righty tighty, lefty loosey. But I'm not a grip. I don't have the skills to be a grip. Power this on. Let's see what we're cooking with. All right, we got a little warm light. This is where you can get a little creative because it's kind of up to you. Do you want this to be mimicking the practicals in the background, so warm light, or do you want it to be kind of mimicking what's happening in the window? So I think this really comes down to personal taste, and this is where, certain DPs have certain looks. I think for me, I'm going to sort of mimic what's coming through the window because I think it makes a little bit more sense based on the angle of where the camera is, based on where the lamp is. Maybe I'll add something to emphasize the lamp a little bit, maybe a tube, but for this, I'm going to kind of emphasize the window light. Let's start with 6,000. Maybe a low percentage, totally in the shot. Let's adjust that. So we're gonna have to boom this out all the way. Ladies and gentlemen, do I recommend this? Nah, not really, but why not? I'm at home. Again, knuckle, tight that bad boy. Make sure you got a sandbag. All right, so I decided to grab a set of tubes, the Pavo tubes, and I'm gonna kind of wrap those practicals over there, because I noticed in the reference image, it definitely feels very warm coming from the area where you see the practical. In the reference, it's on the camera right, but for me, it's gonna be camera left. I just want to really emphasize that warm light in the background and try to make it pop and bring it as close as I possibly can to that reference image. All right, so what they don't teach you in film school is that you don't always need a stand. I'm just gonna put it right here. All right, so I'm gonna do it again. Fully extended arm with an overhead light. Just make sure it's safe so it doesn't fall. But this is gonna be used as an overhead sort of general ambient type of light. I also debated on maybe just getting like a light to be a ceiling bounce, which I might do also. So I'm gonna play around and see if I like this as the overhead light or if I'd rather have a ceiling bounce to be a little bit more of like a general spread. I think the other one's at 6,000, so I'm gonna kind of maybe meet me in the middle. I'm gonna go 5,600, see where it lands me. So it's a little bit warmer. All right, so this is gonna stick up pretty high. All right, so looking at the reference photo, I could definitely see that this is a bit warmer in general. So I think what I might do is adjust the white balance in my camera a little bit so it's a little bit warmer, because right now I have it at 3,500, which is creating a very cool interior and exterior. So I might meet somewhere in the middle, maybe like 4,500, a bit more neutral. Then I could adjust these lights. Because they're RGB, I have full control of what these lights can do in terms of color. All right, so what I'm doing next is kind of just getting some art, production design, some texture. So obviously in the reference there's blankets and they're very color specific. Unfortunately, I don't really have a red blanket like that. So what I'm gonna do is kind of layer this sort of greenish teal blanket, and then I have a red and blue like beach towel that I'm gonna layer on top of it. Not the same, I totally know, but I'm gonna see if it looks good. I like the color. I'm just gonna see if it looks halfway decent. If not, then I'm just gonna toss it. This is the red and blue beach towel. Okay, does it look great? No, not really. I might keep it for now. I might take it down. All right, so after kind of looking and testing a little bit, I realized that I don't really like the top light at all, actually. So I think what I'm gonna do is alternate and do a bit more of like a floor bounce type of situation. So what I got is a 5-in-1 reflector here, a light stand, and a knuckle that I'm gonna kind of grip it to. And the goal with this kind of bounce that I'm trying to accomplish here is it's essentially to wrap a little light, like it's almost coming from the phone essentially, or you know, from below, because looking at the reference, it doesn't really look like there's a ton of top light, to be honest with you. All right, so what I'm gonna do is kind of just drop this as low as I can get it. Tighten it up and rotate it. So it's a bit more of a reverse sort of bounce, and I'm gonna give the bounce a little bit more room. So let's see what this does. Yeah, something like that. I might warm it, cool it down just a little bit. All right, so the other thing that I noticed when kind of looking at the frame of myself is that this backlight, this hair light, is honestly just not, it's not doing exactly what I want. I think it's getting close, but it's not spreading far enough. So I might take the grid off and see if that helps, because right now it's, as you can see, it's pretty much on that side primarily because I don't really have it boomed out evenly. So I wonder if, you know, maybe just taking the grid off will help. So I think the other thing I'm going to do is also point it a little bit more straight down. So instead of pointing out towards me, I'm going to try to point it straight down and see if that also helps a little bit. Oh, that's my ceiling. So I think we're getting closer to the look. It's starting to become nighttime now, so I'm going to take the 500C, bring that outside, and try to create that sort of moonlight look. I'm not necessarily looking for like super direct light through the window, but it's almost just like a raking of blue light coming from across the top corner. The thing with moonlight is that it needs to be far away for it to read. The only problem is that I have a roof where my porch is, so it kind of limits the height that I can get to. The other thing is I'm going to open up the blinds so a little bit more of the nighttime look can come through. Already, just by lifting the blinds, I think that's way more the look that I'm going for with just my eye than with the blinds. So I think just doing that might have actually just solved my problem. Okay, so my wife is back from Pilates, and I mentioned that you were at Pilates. Yeah. So now we're gonna test to see if I like the backlight further away from the window or if I liked it on the porch higher up. My initial hypothesis was that I was gonna like it on the porch higher up better, but my instinct is kicking in, and I think I'm gonna like it at the further distance. So a little bit lower the phone, right there, perfect. All right. Ooh. Yeah, I think that I definitely like the distance way better. It just gives like a nicer fall off. All right, so now we're gonna go through each of the different lighting settings, and I think I finally got the look that we're after. It required 1, 2, 3, 4, sort of 5 lights, and we're gonna run through each of them and show what they're doing. This is probably as close as I can get to the final image of the reference. Yeah, I think it's pretty good, and I think it'll be enhanced a little bit more in the post and color grading. But yeah, let's give it a go. All right, so this is natural light, just the lamps in the background. So now what I added is the Pavo tube in the background. I have this set to a bit of like a more HSI, warmer, orangey, very saturated orange look. The reason for that is the bulbs themselves are very warm, but not warm enough. So I'm kind of just enhancing that with this sort of very warm Pavo tube. All right, next we're gonna work on the background. So this is the 500C outside, and this is in the middle of the lawn. I have this set to 6800 Kelvin at 12%. I think that this is a pretty healthy sort of level outside that doesn't feel too hot, it doesn't feel too, doesn't feel like there's not enough light. I think this is a pretty good amount. So I think this mixed with the tube and the bulbs in the background and her phone already give it a pretty solid look that I'd be happy with, but we're gonna take a step further. Next, we're gonna turn on the Pavo Slim 120C, which is the top light right here. And this is essentially just enhancing the background in general. And the reason for this is I wanted to just enhance room tone. I wanted to bring up the background. I wanted to create a little bit of an edge and separation between the couch and the wall, and her and the wall, and just add a little bit of hair light to kind of wrap the moonlight. I have this currently set to, what do I have this set to? 5800 Kelvin at 4%. So not bright at all, but just enough for it to actually make a big difference. As you can see, on and off makes a world of a difference. So if you remember before when I was setting this up, I initially wanted this to be a top light. And after testing it, I realized that it really just wasn't the look that I was going for. And I wanted to kind of wrap the phone, if that makes sense. The phone itself is creating enough of a light to kind of key her face, but the top light didn't do what I wanted it to do. It was just not the right look. So I brought it lower, almost like there was a light coming from a different room, for example, or maybe a TV perhaps. The 240C is bouncing into a white bounce card. And again, as I mentioned, the 5-in-1 reflector is a beautiful piece of equipment that is so cheap that I highly recommend everyone getting for their at-home practices. All right, so after looking at the image, it's definitely a little hot for my liking, so I'm gonna take it down a little bit. It's probably somewhere around here. All right. It's looking pretty good. So now I'm just gonna kind of run through all the different lights again and see what each of them are working with here. All right, so everything is on. Background light is off, on. Pavo tube. It really does make a nice difference. Like, it just wraps the lamps just enough for it to kind of travel across the room a little bit more. And also this Pavo Slim 120C is definitely making a huge difference for me, because without it, it just feels a little bland, but with it, it does add a nice little bit of separation. I think, if anything, I could probably tone it down a little bit, to be honest. That's at 2%. So let's see 100. No way. I'm gonna keep it at 3% there at 5800. Pavo Slim 240C is the key light. That is hot. Take that down. So it just needs to be a little kiss. So maybe 15% there. It does feel pretty good. All right. So this is what the final image looks like. I'd say I'm pretty happy with this. Like, if I were to shoot this, I'd be pretty... That's okay. I'd be pretty happy with this. So that's it today for everyone, apparently. I don't know. Yeah, hopefully you enjoyed today's video. Hopefully you learned something. If you're interested in some of these Nanlite products, click the link in the description to learn more. Yeah, I'll see you guys next time. Have a great day. Peace out. Hookah.